Hello and welcome to the Rogers Brief. I'm Adam Rogers. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening. So we finally had the first day of the Mass Casualty Commission hearings after a long wait and some delays. We didn't have a full day of hearings. It was kind of short. It was about 2.5 hours of total commission time on the live stream and in person. But some significant things were said and took place, so I'll tell you a little bit about those. There were three things on the agenda today. One was an opening statement from the commissioners, and all three spoke. And secondly was a presentation on the website and resources associated with that. And then third thing was a panel on mental health called Human Impact. So I'll talk a little bit about each one of those. So first things were led off by Commissioner Michael MacDonald, former Chief Justice of Nova Scotia, although he goes by Commissioner MacDonald throughout the time in the commission, so that's interesting. Anyway, in his remarks, I'd say he was clearly conscious of some of the public criticism and concerns that have been expressed in letters from family members and others. He spoke about how family members would certainly be able to share their memories with the public through the means of their choice, should they wish to do so. So presumably, he didn't say explicitly, but presumably that would mean testifying on the stand if a individual chose to do so. He said they are absolutely committed to finding answers, although he did reiterate the process was going to be non-adversarial. He talked it was going to be inclusive, forward-focused. He says we're not here to conduct a trial. He said it would be creative and flexible, so we'll see what that means as the days and weeks unfold. He spent some time talking about his own independence, and he wanted to assure the public and those watching that he himself placed great value in his independence. His judicial reputation really rests to a great extent on that principle. So he said, whether it's police or the government, that he would maintain that independence. So I suspect then that probably means he either won't read or won't consider too much the letters or the statements today from the Premier and the Minister of Immigration. So we'll see how that unfolds. And I'll keep an eye on those too, by the way. The political environment around the inquiry is in many ways just as important as the legal elements inside of it. Now, I know I've been critical about different elements of the inquiry, but just on Chief Justice MacDonald, I mean, he's certainly one of my biggest sources of hope in terms of things being able to be accomplished through this process. So certainly he's been someone who's not been shy to get out from behind the bench during his career as a judge, and then he did the report on police checks and such that I thought showed some courage and insight, and didn't mind going after some vested interest in that. So we'll see what happens here. What else? He talked about the foundational documents process, and certainly from his take at least, these participants have had important roles in the foundational document formation. So we'll see what they have to say. We haven't heard that from the participants themselves, so we'll see what that looks like next week when we get those foundational documents. Now, in terms of witnesses, the Chief Justice did say that if there were gaps in the evidence, if we needed witnesses, that there would be witnesses, and that the participants could either suggest questions or perhaps be able to cross-examine witnesses themselves. Now, we knew that already from the rules. He did make a point of saying it. He did say there would be an opportunity for robust, I use that word, cross-examination if necessary, but didn't commit to any key witnesses, didn't name any particular witnesses that we would be sure to hear from, so hard to know how the discretion is going to be used until it actually happens, so we'll keep an eye on that, but that's he's laid down that marker in his opening remarks. Now, that was Chief Justice MacDonald. The other two commissioners spoke as well, Ms. Fitch and Ms. Stanton. Ms. Stanton's remarks were interesting. She made a note of saying that her book on inquiries was written before she started her work on the commission. Not sure that really changes the calculation on that, but anyway, that's something she certainly made a point of mentioning. As I mentioned before in my other pieces, there was no opportunity for the participants, the other participants, the family representatives, government entities, otherwise, to make representations or make presentations at the beginning. So that's interesting that they would be kind of kept to the sideline at this opening important juncture. So that was the opening statement. That was about an hour in total. The afternoon had first a short website presentation. If you didn't already watch it, there's no reason to go back and look at it. If the website's very user-friendly, I don't know if that was really a necessary presentation, but anyway, that was that. And then there was the panel on human impact. And this was kind of interesting. I'm going to read out the list of the presenters. There was Star Cunningham, who was the moderator, and then there was Crystal John from Adsum House, Robin Can, who is a therapist in Cumberland, Susan Henderson with the Colchester CMHA, Cheryl Myers with the local health board there, Catherine Hay from the Kids Help Phone, and Dr. Keith Dobson from University of Calgary. So this was just about an hour-long discussion about the impacts really on mental health of the people in the Portapique area in particular, but rural Nova Scotia and beyond, across Canada in rural communities. How people are starting to lock their doors. After the events, there was the evidence and the reports that they were getting and phone calls they were getting from people in the area was that people were retreating into their houses and not socializing. Of course, it was early in the pandemic too, so that had an effect on everything obviously too. So there was that discussion. Interesting comments from Ms. Hay from the Kids Help Phone, that normally they would get about 40% of their phone calls from rural parts of Canada and Nova Scotia included. But after the shootings, it was 70% for a while from rural Nova Scotia, and in their overall volume, and they get calls, she said, from 5 years old to late 20s. The phone call volume doubled over that period of time after the shooting. So certainly significant. Although she did say there is the silver lining of the fact that the kids were reaching out for help, and that really displayed some resilience on their part. So that's an interesting point I thought she made too. The advice generally from the panelists was for people in the community, the area of Portapique and other areas like it, to get back out, reestablish those social connections, social bonds, and really that's the way over time, slowly, that the sense of safety, security, community cohesion will be reestablished and regained in these areas. So nothing simple about it. You just have to go and do it. Recognizing, of course, at the same time, because of the pandemic, that everybody's had their own pandemic experience. You don't know what that might be until you talk to somebody, and so keep that in mind as you're interacting and talking to people maybe for the first time in a while. So that was the panel. It was interesting. Of course, it was a choice to put this at the beginning of the Mass Casualty Commission hearings, proceedings. Of course, it allows people to talk about the effects of something like this can have on a community and sort of orient everybody's mindset to that. I hope, although to consider this, whether in describing the trauma at this stage, talking about the effects that it can have, that that they're not trying in any way subtly to undermine the credibility of the participants in that area as the effects of the trauma. So I don't think so, but it was anyway something perhaps to watch for. Anyway, nothing groundbreaking there. Also about the analysis, but also they talked about people watching, participants and viewers, that they should watch out for their own mental health and ensure they access the resources if they need it, and be self-aware, look after yourself, get outside, get some fresh air, do all those good things. So anyway, that was the first day. Some interesting stuff, some markers laid down by the commissioners, and some perspective from the panelists. We'll see what happens tomorrow now. There's We're going to be a panel on life in rural Nova Scotia, so we'll hear a little more of that, probably some of the same content that we got today, but so I'll watch that and I'll report back afterwards for anything significant that takes place. Going to be on CTV morning live tomorrow morning as well, about 7:15. If anybody else is up that early, tune in and you'll get a few more thoughts before things get started tomorrow. All right, thanks again for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.